In the previous episode, Ronan went to Phil Leon Academy to enroll. As he demonstrated his swordsmanship, the swordsmanship instructor got up from her seat and rushed toward Ronan. She put her sword at his neck. With a threatening look, she asked him who he was and how he learned that swordsmanship. And then, Ronan told her that he didn't understand her question. So she asked a different question. She asked if he saw her movements. Ronan said she was amazing. In that instance, it should have been hard for her to unsheath her sword, and yet she swung it 3 times. She said she swung it 3 times just like he did. She was angry at his arrogant performance. She asked him if he thought that she wouldn't know that he actually swung his sword 3 times. She said that in that last cut, he purposefully slowed it down just in case the professors didn't see it. As if he was being considerate. She accused him of being arrogant and asked if he forgot where he was standing. Ronan was troubled because it was a misunderstanding. He only adjusted the speed of the last cut because he thought his sword wouldn't be able to withstand it. But judging by the mood, the instructor probably won't believe him. At that point, Instructor Nabirose sheathed her sword. With a threatening look, she told him that she would definitely teach him herself. As she sat down in her seat, the headmaster knew that her words meant that she called dibs on Ronan as her disciple. Then the headmaster complimented Ronan and told him that to end the test, he only needed to answer a common question. Since the question is quite ambiguous, he could reply with whatever he felt best. They asked him what he wanted to learn for him to come to Phil Leon Academy. The question made Ronan remember the sacrifices that were made and the regrets he had. So he replied that the first thing he wanted to learn was to not have any regrets. With that, his test ended and they told him to head out safely. The headmaster was baffled to hear his answer. All he could do was laugh in excitement, thinking how he would teach Ronan. The blonde theory professor couldn't understand what was going on. He asked what kind of great trick Ronan pulled that made both Nabirose and the headmaster act like that. The headmaster said that it wasn't a trick, it was talent. At that moment, the theory professors screamed in shock. The magically engineered dummy that no one could damage had its head rolling on the ground. After the exam, Ronan was thinking about the sword instructor's sword. He was wondering if he would be able to defeat her, even if it was his past self. He thought he had seen all there was to see, but the world still had terrifying beings. He was glad that he came to Phil Leon Academy because in that place he'd be able to learn a lot. Then it was time for the written test. He had been memorizing things for a month. So he thought that it would be easy. But after taking the test he said, and I quote, "Fucking not, I'm screwed, so fucking screwed. My life is always like that." Maria asked the red-haired boy how such a thing happened since she gave him a bag full of notes that covered every topic in the test. The boy explained that Ronan took a few books, but after being hyperfocused he didn't study the most important book. The redhead felt bad for him and Maria had a hard time believing that a fool like Ronan existed. So Maria tried to cheer him up saying that the practical test was more important anyway. At that moment, a magical mechanism activated in front of the testing ground. The applicants were shown a giant magical notice board that revealed the list of people who passed. The redhead's name was Acel. In the magic department, he was 12th in the practical test, and in the theory test, he was tied for first place with 3 other applicants. Maria applied to the martial arts department. She was 9th in the practical and also 9th in the theory test. Both of them looked at each other in disbelief. They couldn't be happier that they passed. Maria congratulated Acel for coming first in the exam. Then she looked back to ask Ronan about his rank, but there he was standing and everything looked white. He said that he had known it wouldn't be there. Maria and Acel were shocked. Maria pulled on his eyelids and asked if he checked properly. But Ronan had read every single name. Just when he said, and I quote, "I really fucked up," a ball of fire came crashing down on the testing ground. Maria explained that it was the entrance exam's last cannon fire for each department's top applicant, the salutatorian. It was called a glory phoenix. The phoenix flapped its wing and shot out more balls of fire. One of them was directed at Ronan. As it hit him, it revealed that he was the martial arts department's salutatorian. First in the practical test and 5,712th in the theory. They were shocked. Maria and Acel grabbed him. They congratulated him and told him that they knew he was a genius. Ronan was happy and said that they had a good eye for people. But suddenly he had a thought that if he came first, then that meant there was a certain man that lost to him. And knowing that man's personality, he wouldn't stay quiet. Just as he had an ominous feeling, the man who was supposed to be first came up to him. Ronan was nervous as it was none other than the sword saint, Schlieffen. He was the son of a ducal family and the future sword saint. The other applicants were startled to see him there, and Ronan was even more shocked. Because Schlieffen was a man who could not stand anyone better than him at the sword. The terrifying competitive spirit of Schlieffen was something he had to avoid. So Ronan decides to bluff his way out of that situation. He said he didn't know how he ranked first. But Schlieffen didn't believe him. He asked him why he was lying. Ronan played dumb once more and asked if he had any proof. He told him to stop picking fights and move along. So Schlieffen decided to show him proof. He unsheathed his sword and swung it at him. But Ronan blocked it with his sword. Maria and Asel were worried about Ronan, and Schlieffen asked if that was proof enough, since he wouldn't be able to react to it if he wasn't skilled enough. The other applicants were startled to see a fight broke out. At that point, Schlieffen told him to show the skills that had bested him. Ronan called him a crazy bastard, and agreed to show him. He attacked Schlieffen with the same move he used to behead the magically engineered dummy. But Schlieffen blocked the 3 consecutive slashes with a single swing of his sword. Then Ronan asked him if he was satisfied. Schlieffen's right hand was shaking. He judged that it was a great technique that was good enough to get a good score. But it wasn't enough to beat him. Ronan called him crazy and told him to relax, but Schlieffen still couldn't accept it. He told Ronan to show everything he had been hiding. As their swords clashed, Ronan thought to himself that this was why he didn't want to meet him. Because if things kept progressing, then Schlieffen would start manipulating aura. His aura was different. It could create a tempest with a single slice. An outrageous aura that was called the Tempest Sword. But Ronan wasn't yet strong enough to handle it. As Ronan turned his back, Schlieffen with a displeased expression asked why he was turning his back to his opponent during a fight. But Ronan was clever. He used Asel as a meat shield. Schlieffen called him a coward for using a lady as a shield. Asel corrected him, saying he was a guy, and Ronan said that he knew that Schlieffen would protect the way of the knight even when he was about to die. He took that opportunity to smack him in the face. The injury to his face caused him to be disoriented for a moment. So Ronan told them to run. Before Schlieffen could react, he ran away with Maria and Asel. Then the security guard arrived at the scene. He was taken aback to see Sir Schlieffen in that state. He asked who would dare to do such a thing and said he would pursue them right away. But Schlieffen humbly refused. He said that it was a fair fight and he would take care of it himself. Then when he glanced at his sword, he saw a crack. The sword was made from the highest grade of mithril. He thought Ronan's skills were nothing extraordinary, but he did that much with a cheap sword. Schlieffen was intrigued. He said that he would remember his name. The next day, Ronan and Asel went to the outskirts of the capital in the Shimo forest. They were following the map that the Warlion professor gave them. Asel was worried because the guy Ronan fought and broke the nose of was the heir of the Grancia ducal family. He was worried they might seek revenge. But Ronan reassured him, saying that Schlieffen was a good person and that he was just crazy about the sword. He upholds principle and trust. He was everyone's role model that protected the weak. He was the epitome of a perfect noble. He told Asel that Schlieffen probably said that it was a fair spar, and if he didn't, then they would already be behind bars. Then they reached their destination, the mana vein that the professor told them about. The Fernando Spring. The mana that hovers around in nature sometimes gathers in one spot to form a puddle, which is called the mana vein. Its value is astronomical. It can turn a regular rock into the highest grade mana stone and a regular weed into a miraculous medicinal herb. Most people want to monopolize it, but the beast professor was quite generous to give them something like that just to hatch an egg. Ronan asked him if he felt any different. Asel told him that it was his first time sensing that much mana concentrated in one place. In that place he could perform a stronger level of magic than usual. Even the egg in Ronan's pocket was acting up. It was absorbing mana at an incredible speed. Asel said Maria would have liked that place. But she couldn't come with them because she was busy with her family's merchant business. Then suddenly a thought crossed his mind. He said to Ronan that it was strange. The Fernando Spring was full of mana and life. So a lot of fantastical animals should nest near there. But why couldn't they hear any animal sounds? Ronan thought to himself he had become complacent. He told Asel to be ready because he could smell blood. He said some unwelcomed guests arrived there before them. Then from the depths of the trees, a sharp arrowhead could be seen. 5 masked men took up their bows and aimed at them. They shot arrows at Ronan, but he cut them all up with his sword. The arrowheads brought up old memories. Previously, when he was camping with his disciplinary squad, one of the members was boasting about how great that arrow was. It could blow up the head of an orc. The people who used that arrowhead were the members of the Calabaro organization called the Bloodhounds. With that, Ronan figured out their identity and rank. He told Acel to hide somewhere and rushed towards the poachers. The Calabaro Bloodhounds were flustered since Ronan cut their mana-infused arrows in one slash. The team leader ordered them to spread out and attack from different directions. Ronan was surprised at their quick decision-making skills, but the situation wasn't good. So he came up with an interesting idea. He shouted to the poachers and said, and I quote, "Stop your attacks, can't you even recognize your own allies?" The poachers stopped and Ronan told them that he was the youngest bloodhound from the Demas branch and his name was Ahiyuti. For those who don't know, Ahiyuti was the name of one of the 3 giant gods that would invade the empire. The bloodhounds came up to him, they were in disbelief that a little baby like him was a bloodhound. So Ronan told him that if they didn't believe him then they should ask the wolf from their branch. He further added that assuming that others can't do whatever he couldn't do was a bad habit. There was nothing more pathetic than that. The team leader called him a bastard child, held him by the collar, and pointed a knife at his throat. He asked him if he wanted him to cut off his limbs and Ronan told him that people like him always have a bad ending. Then a timid-looking guy told the team leader that he knew about the Calabaro ranking system too well to be an outsider, and if he was really telling the truth then they might have discord with the Demas branch. They should confirm it with their captain first. At that moment, the captain arrived at the scene. He was the Demir branch's wolf, Vume. The team leader was happy to see him. He went to explain the situation. Seeing the wolf arrive, Ronan knew that everyone was finally gathered in one place. When the wolf asked him if he was Ahiyuti from the Demas branch, Ronan said yes. The wolf then asked him why he was there. It was decided that the Shimo mountain range belonged to the Demir branch. With a genuine smile, Ronan replied that he wasn't sure about that since he wasn't Ahiyuti. The wolf was pissed. Then Ronan slashed 4 of the poachers, and cut them in half. The team leader and the wolf were shocked. Ronan rushed at them while saying, and I quote, "I used the most fucked name I knew because it was the best name when pretending to be a fucking poacher." The wolf couldn't even react. He cut his head off in a single slash. Then he reminded the team leader that he previously told him his ending would be bad. In that instance, he cut off his fingers. The team leader was in pain. But Ronan didn't give him time to breathe, he gave him a paper, and told him to write down the locations of all the branches that he knew of. Ronan threatened him saying that if he didn't do it, he would have no reason to keep him alive. The team leader told him he'll do it but he didn't have anything to write with. Ronan told him that he was spitting bullshit, he made him a pen. It was right there on his hand. He hurriedly drew a map. Ronan was satisfied. So the poacher asked him if he would keep his promise and let him live. Ronan put the map in his pocket. Then he killed him ruthlessly. He said, and I quote, "Of course not." And unfortunately, that is all for now. I've recapped all the chapters that were released. This video contained the 12th, 13th, and 14th chapters. I will make a part 3 video when more chapters are released. So if you don't want to miss that, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications.